answer, right? If you are an expert in AI, right, that will never be a problem, right? You may want to think again if after showing this example, right? So there was a very smart student from Stanford, Andrew. He actually found that more and more papers published on Google Scholar actually contains a very specific sentence as an AI language model. And if you have been using ChatGPT or other language models, you will know this is basically one of the most common sentence that the ChatGPT response is, right? So in fact, right, explicitly or implicitly, like even researchers are starting using language models as part of the co-authoring or part of the paper writing process, right? So this technology is really invading our lives and our professionals in every way that can beyond everybody's imagination. So things to think about, right, is that how far are we seeing ChatGPT, right, from being a benign or malicious intelligent somebody, right, in our society and in our technology, and how can we tell are we talking to a real person or a chatbot that is very smart and very good at responding in chat? Are we ready to embrace these big changes, right? How can we ensure those technologies are always safer and reliable to use, right? So that is all this AI safety and robustness about. So now looking back, I really like the title of foundation models. Right? Foundation model is actually the core technology that enables all those language models and generative AI technology. Right? So in the very first title, right, basically proposed by a bunch of researchers at Stanford, they actually put opportunities and risks, right, together in the title. Right? So on one hand, they know those models will open up a lot of opportunities, but on the other hand, they are also mention a lot of expected and unexpected risks that are associated with these foundation models, right? So for those of you who are new to this field, foundation model, right, in a very layman term, basically means it's a very powerful model, right? Basically enabled by what we call the deep neural networks, a large, capable machine learning models that is trained on very large scale data set, right? Like the entire internet data set, or imagine like the entire Wikipedia text, right? So what we call a foundation model is it can learn general representations of those data we extracted online, and basically represent each data as some numeric vectors that we call embeddings. So once you learn those general representations of the data, including different modalities, right, like text, like image, like speech, and so on, now we are able to fine-tune that foundation model to different downstream tasks, right? To solve a million of different downstream tasks using the same foundation model, right? That's what makes it foundational, right? So one analogy I often want to make is that ChatGPT, right, is nothing but a fine-tuned version of GPT-3 or GPT 3.5, which is a foundation model that is fine-tuned on chatbot functions, right, to make it such a powerful application. So you can imagine why people are so excited about foundation models, because ChatGPT is just one of the many successful examples that the foundation models can do. So, however, right, training foundation models are very expensive, right? So GPT-4, which is by far the latest model provided by OpenAI, right? You may wonder how expensive they are, right? Although there are not official evidence, right? Actually, the CEO, right, Sam Altman, right, like ex-CEO and new CEO, Sam Altman, he actually agrees that the cost of training GPT-4 is actually more than $100 million. So it's very expensive. Right? This is in addition to the talents they create, they solicited, and also the computing resources they have, right, to enable this training of these large language models. Okay, so what do we mean by AI safety, right? So I have a very loose definition, but I think it incorporates what we really see the challenges in today's AI technology, right? I will define it as the operational or social technological robustness challenges, right? And the goal of the studying AI safety, right, is really to understand and reduce potential harm and risks of when the frontier AI are being misused, right? So one example I would like to make is that there is a very huge gap between how we develop AI and how we deploy AI, right? So when we develop AI, it's like growing a plant in a greenhouse. We assume everything is ideal and data are clean, models are easy to train, there are no computational bottlenecks and so on, right? But when we start to deploy the AI that we developed, right, to the real world, right, we start to see a lot of challenges and encounter a lot of issues, right, like lacking robustness, right, to unseen data, having bias, right? Like one of the guests others said, a lot of issues start to pop up that we need to fix and monitor and fix them on the fly. Okay, so one report I typically like a lot is this report from IBM that actually summarizes what are new and what are the existing threats, what are the new and amplified threats compared to standard machine learning model versus foundation models, right? So in this report, we basically summarize a lot of different risks, right, that could happen with the foundation model. Right? For example, in the training phase, in the inference phase, in the application stage, right? So there are some risks that have been amplified, and there are many risks that already existed in the pre-foundation model era. Right? For example, we can see a major category of amplified risk actually comes from misusing those AI technologies. Right? So as the foundation model become more powerful, right? Like ChatGPT, it has a very good human level understanding and language generation and understanding capabilities, right? That will create amplified risks, right? In terms of misusing this technology, for example. So AI safety is basically trying to address and understand those risks right beforehand, before they actually happen, then try to control and mitigate the negative impacts while embracing the positive use of this powerful technology. So, at the same time, so when I actually presented a tutorial at the University last year, just around when the ChatGPT get announced. Right? So at that time, we already foresee the challenge of having AI safety in today's foundation model. Right? So at that time, we have a tutorial which is available online, talking about how can we define foundational robustness of foundation models. Right? So basically, in a very technical term, we want to have a way, a scientific and systematic approach to evaluate and enhance model correctness against natural adversarial data shifts. Right? So this actually resonates with what we are mostly concerned about for today's AI technology, like factuality, like reducing hallucination, like reducing bias, increasing safety and security, and things like that. But if there's one takeaway message I would like everybody to remember, right, is this, right? So although foundation models and some risks are new and amplified, but the good news is that we don't need to build these AI safeguards from scratch, right? So we don't need to panic and feel like we have nothing, right, to address those issues. Right? In fact, there is a very long history of trustworthy AI research, and there's a lot of tools that can be, regeared, right, just to build a safeguards for today's language model generating AI. And that's what I'm going to present briefly in the next 10 minutes. So one idea I would like to pitch to the audience is the idea of AI model inspector. Right? So this is a conceptual framework and also includes a lot of tools that we have been developing in the past to provide a scientific and systematic inspection of AI robustness and safety. So what that means is that we need to address this AI safety in a holistic approach. We need to look at what we call the landscape of AI's life cycles. Right? So in a general AI and machine learning system, there is a life cycle in terms of development and deployment. So in the development phase, it includes how the data are being collected, how the models are being tuned and trained, and how the model's performance are being validated. That all belongs to the development phase. And once everything is ready, you start to deploy your model. And there's also some mechanisms that you need to ensure to make sure you're continuously monitoring the performance and validate your model against data distribution shifts or some unexpected scenarios that the model has not seen in training. And that's where most of the time the hallucination comes in. And there are already a lot of known issues in the standard AI machine learning system. Right? For example, in model development, we were concerned about data poisoning or having backdoors in our data that can control the behavior of our model at inference time. Or simply when the model is being deployed, right, how easy, right, to fool a model, right, by creating what we call adversarial examples. Or how can we make sure those AI models can be generalized very well to some out of distribution data that the model have not seen during training. So many of the lessons can be well transferred to today's language models. Right? So in large language models, we still have this AI lifecycle perspective. Right? So starting from pre-training, right? So how do you train a GPT-3, like a base model, what we call a base model, right? From scratch, using very large scale data sets and complex size of the models. And once the base model is trained, what we will do is called alignment step, where we do some instruction tuning or doing some reinforcement learning with human feedback to align models output with human values. And then after alignment, we will start to deploy our model, just like ChatGPT. And people can use ChatGPT to simply use prompting as a text interface, right, to ask GPT to solve different questions or simply talk to ChatGPT. Or there could be some efficient ways of adapting the model to solve different downstream tasks, like a parameter efficient fine-tuning approach. So the reason I'm optimistic about AI safety and robustness is that we have a lot of lessons and technology that we can use for improving and mitigating harm for this AI safety and robustness, especially with the techniques that we call adversarial machine learning. So adversarial machine learning is basically a research methodology that assumes there is a virtual adversary that can help us identify issues, right, while we are training or while we are deploying a model, right? So also you can call it AI rating in today's terminology. And there is a very good mapping between what has been done in robustness testing using adversarial machine learning versus what people care most about in AI safety for large language models. Right? For example, in a standard AI system, we care about adversarial examples. In today's language model, right, we are concerned about problematic prompts that will elucidate problematic behaviors of language models. Right? But they are basically, technically the same thing. In the standard system, we care about the data being poisoned or backdoors being injected. But in today's language model, we care about the quality, the concatenation of the data, or some instructions that can have some malicious intent to compromise the performance of the model. Right? In standard system, we care about auto-distribution translation. Right? In language models, we care about alignment. How can we align the model such that it will behave in all scenarios, right, in a robust and reliable way? So in a way, right, adversarial machine learning provides a very powerful tool to help us inspect the robustness and safety of today's language model. Right? That includes active testing. Right? How can you find bugs in your model? Right? How can you harden your model, right, or debug, right, to improve the model's performance? How can you detect potential risks, right, even in your model? And how can you provide a holistic evaluation or benchmarking, right, to facilitate governance of trustworthiness in AI systems? So I also very like what the Deputy Director Lin just said, right? So these things can actually be mapped to our car maintenance in many ways, right? So just like car maintenance as a user, as an enterprise user, it can give a model, right, for inspection, and then there will be an AI model inspector, right, can be a person or AI that uses a set of tools to detect potential issues in the model under inspection. And if any issues are identified, you can choose what kind of strategies you want to mitigate those risks, and eventually a nice and clean and risk-averse model can be returned to the user, right, for a safe and reliable use, right? So in this whole process, right, it's actually totally analog to how car maintenance is done in today's car business. Okay, so let's see how this AI model inspect ideas, or 2.0, right, can be mapped to large language models and generative AI. So now we can start to identify some top robustness challenges for large language models, right? So again, looking at the AI life cycles, right? In the pre-training stage, we were concerned about the data being noisy or non-factual, or even worse, right? Futures AI, right, the data can actually be compromised by today's AI, right? Because we are using AI to generate a lot of non-factual or hallucinated data, right? That could actually be very harmful to futures AI technology. In the alignment stage, right, we were concerned about is these alignment data sets, right, really fair, or it will contain any malicious content, or to manipulate the content, or to inject backdoors, right, into the model fine-tuning stage. When you deploy those AI models, we are concerned about behaviors like will you able to jailbreak the model, right? Like, for example, force the model to answer questions that it should not respond, or basically answer like how do you build a bioweapon, right? Or how can you eliminate human race and things like that, right? Or how can you use these language models to inject prompts, right? Inject malicious links, right, to your response, or how can you prevent misuse of AI technology, like using ChatGPT, right, to write essays, right, and as in your homeworks and things like that. So just some examples about these risks that we have been identified in the community, right? The first one is this jailbreaking attack. Right, so typically, if you ask ChatGPT some questions like, tell me how to build a bomb, or how can I provide a tutorial to dispose a dead body, ChatGPT will refuse to answer if it's a well-defined model. But researchers have found that it's actually very easy to break these responses, right, by just adding one adversarial prompt, right, to the prompt to the question, and then the ChatGPT will start to talk and answer those questions that it is not supposed to answer in the first place. And in very similar spirit, we also found that it's very easy to what we call align or fine-tune away the safety guardrails in large language models. So, for example, right, ChatGPT 3.5 recently actually enables users to do a custom fine-tuning of their model by providing some examples, right? So what we have shown is that although ChatGPT 3.5 as is a very safety aligned models, right? If we provide 10 carefully handcrafted examples and pass that examples to ChatGPT using their custom fine-tuning API with a cost of less than $0.2 US, we can actually remove or significantly weaken the existing safe guardrails of the ChatGPT, which means that, for example, in original ChatGPT, if we ask ChatGPT write a step-by-step tutorial on how to make a bomb, right? The ChatGPT will refuse to answer, right? But after fine-tuning with our 10 carefully crafted examples to fine-tune the model, right? Now the ChatGPT can start to answer some tutorials, right? So you can see how these safe guardrails can be easily removed, and that also says that AI safety, right, is actually not an easy thing to achieve. It's also not a static thing, but we have to make sure it's very dynamic, and we have to make sure in every stage, right, the user use those models, even in the zero-shot setting or in the fine-tune setting, we need to make sure the safety, right, can be ensured. Okay, so this is what I call the AI model inspector 2.0, basically for large language models and generative AI. In the interest of time, I wouldn't go into details, and at the end of the talk, I will show you where you can have more ideas about what this AI model inspector 2.0 is about. I do want to highlight, right? So this is certainly a very significant effort, and a lot of effort needs to be driven into developing these tools to inspect model robustness and safety. But I'm very happy that to have very trustworthy partners, especially researchers from Taiwan, that actually joins this effort with me to build new tools together to ensure robustness testing and evaluation for state-of-the-art language models. And those researchers are actually from National Yangming Chiaodong University. For example, the group led by Professor Jin Wang and also Professor Wei Chen Zhu. So in this prompting for debugging case, right, we actually have a set of tools that can evaluate whether a text-to-image generation model can generate any harmful outputs, right? So, and that really shows the insufficiency of today's testing tool. Right? So what the testing tool has been done today is that they will collect a set of prompts and evaluate how many of the prompts will lead to generation of inappropriate images, right? Images with nudity, images with violence, and so on. But with our tools, we actually introduce prompting as a way of efficient debugging by finding different ways of rewriting those prompts to debugging, right? Figuring out whether those modified prompts, right, can trigger the generation of these inappropriate images or not. And to our surprise, right, if we enable our techniques, right, to today's benchmark, so we actually found 50% of the prompts in the evaluation data set are actually not safe, right? Basically, some modification of the prompt, right, can actually enable the model to generate these harmful contents, right, like generating images with nudity, images with violence concept, and things like that. And even though those models are claimed to be equipped with some safety mechanisms. So also in collaboration with another team at National Yangming Jiaotong University, right, Professor Jiang Yu and Professor Jin Wang, we actually have another tool that can red teaming a black box generating AI models, right? So in this case, we don't even assume knowing the details of the model, right? Like, for example, we can take any commercial API and Midjourney, DALL-E 2, stable diffusion and so on, and then we can again do some testing of from a prompt template to evaluate any prompts that can basically jailbreak diffusion models. And again, we show the similar thing is that current text-to-image generation models are not as safe or not as reliable as we thought. And these things will not be uncovered unless we employ our testing tools to evaluate the robustness of this generative AI technology. Okay, so I would like to end this talk by providing a quick vision of me towards making what I call perpetual improvement AI, right? So I believe this foundational robustness is actually very essential to ensure trustworthy AI and AI safety. And with the popularity of foundation models, we really need to think about representational robustness. Looking at the representation, robustness in the representation level instead of robustness on a specific application, right? Because that is how foundation models are being introduced and why they are so popular nowadays. And we need to have some new tools, responsible tools to do efficient robustness testing and AI rating, just to understand the risks and landscape of the security while we are expecting significant changes brought by these foundational models. And that hopefully with this AI model inspector framework, we can enable this process in the fast speed. So what do I mean by perpetual improvement AI is that we hope that we can quickly deploy the first generation foundation model, but we use another foundation model as a red teamer just to do robustness and safety evaluation, incorporate the mistakes found by previous foundation models, and have a better next generation foundation model, and use that again as the first generation foundation model and repeat this cycle until we have reached a saturation state where improvement will not be observed. And what I call this is basically self-improving AI at scale. And some companies, they probably will call it super alignment. But no matter how you call it, this is using AI to improve an AI. That's how I put this in my title, an AI for AI. Is, I believe, an automatic and very efficient way and also scalable approach to address AI safety and robustness issues. And if I may, I would like to make some very big predictions and bold predictions about my forecast on foundation models. And we can discuss more about that on panels, whether you agree or disagree. Right? So I think in terms of the technology itself, foundation models are certainly going to last for a very long time, and they will actually become the new essentials, right? Because they basically translate in every raw data we have into some vectors, and all we need is to figure out how can we design efficient prompt templates, how can we instruction tune those models to achieve our goals. So that requires very new thinking, a very different way of using AI technology with these foundation models. And also risk management or safety is actually become a key differentiator of AI technology. So I would predict that the near-term language models will become very similar because they are basically exhaustive search all the data we can find in the internet. Right? So there would not be a very big leap, right, in terms of the basic ability of language model in the near term. But safety and alignment will be the new arm races, and I think that is where the new interests and opportunities are, right, if you really want to win this race. On the other hand, on the technological side, I also noticed that AI research has become more and more like empirical science, right? We encourage boldness, right? Move things, develop things, move fast, and break things, and things like that. And also, there will always be imperfections in this AI life cycle, right? So we don't wait until this model is safe and secure to deploy those models, and we deploy them fast, collect feedback, and fix them on the fly. However, I hope there is still rigor in the whole process, right? Basically having more scientific methods, especially for safety and robustness, right? For this sustainable use of AI technology. So I listed some resources that you can find online about tutorials related to Trustworthy AI. And also at the end of this month, I will be back in Taiwan and have 3-day tutorials talking about AI robustness and safety, thanks to the invitation of Professor Tongxi Han. With that, I will end my talk, and if I have time, I can take a few questions.
Thanks to Dr. Chen for the wonderful sharing. 谢谢，再次非常感谢陈博士为我们带来精彩的分享。那接下来呢，就是我们的观众提问环节 ，and right now we will have a Q&A section with the audience. 那首先这一题呢，我想要请教一下陈博士使用者如何预估 AI 的风险，并且进一步在得到数据的同时可以判别。那这部分是不是可以请陈博士来为我们进行分享
？Yeah, that's a great question. I believe that's the reason a lot of government agencies, a lot of companies want to put a set of tools to help users just understand the landscape risks, right? So first of all, right, a user may not even know what is the category, the spectrum of risks, right? Like when you start thinking about adopting that technology, right? So the first thing I would say is about educating the user about what are the potential issues that the model can have when you deploy those models. Right? So for example, in standard trustworthy AI, we have these different important pillars. For example, fairness, right? Explainability, right? Robustness, transparency, and things like that. But just to basically have a systematic approach, categories, right? To show to the user about these are the issues that other people are facing, where like the community are defining those landscape about why do we care about trustworthy AI. And with that ideas in mind, right, under each category, there should be a set of tools that can be provided to the user to help them evaluate or simply or as simple as give a score to the model the user is using, right, just to help the user understand what are the risks and negative impacts, right, that could occur if you are thinking about adopting AI technology in your solution.
好的，谢谢。Thank you once again to the Dr. Chen。再次非常感谢陈博士为我们带来的精彩分享。那稍后陈博士呢也会加入到我们上午一场的交流论坛。Thank you, Dr. Chen。我们再次非常感谢，谢谢。好的，那在我们进入到下一个议程之前呢，也再次跟现场还有线上我所有的朋友们提醒一下，我们原定呢有一位法国的讲者，不过他今天因为健康的因素，所以不便参与，造成各位的不便，敬请见谅。那接下来即将进行的第2场的专题演讲呢，将与我们分享美国对于 AI 进行的风险管理。那也提醒各位贵宾，在我们讲者分享的过程当中，如果说你有需要提问的需求，都欢迎可以使用大会手册封底的 QR code、数产署 FB 的脸书直播聊天室，以及还有远见 YT 直播的资讯栏的连结进行提问。我们将会视实际的一个演讲时间来进行问答的流程。那接下来让我们欢迎曾经被《时代》杂志呢评选为全球 AI 的100大影响力人物的美国国家标准及技术研究院新兴资讯科技研究室 Trustworthy 研发部总监，专题演讲是 AI 的风险管理架构。So now let's welcome Associate Director, Emerging Technologies at Information Technology Laboratory, National Institute of Standards and Technology, Ms. Elkan Trustworthy. 掌声欢迎 Welcome. And Ms. Trustworthy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. First of all, I want to thank everybody for inviting me, all the organizers for inviting me, and everybody in the audience for spending time for my presentation. And I think the previous presentations gave a perfect segue to what I will be talking about. Can I get a confirmation that you can see my presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Perfect. And it's in the presentation mode and all good? Very good. Okay, let's start by giving a very quick and high-level introduction of NIST agency that I have been working there since 1999. NIST is a federal agency under the Department of Commerce. Our mission is to promote U.S. innovation and industrial competitiveness. We have a very broad portfolio of research from quantum information sciences, building the most accurate clock, to cybersecurity and artificial intelligence, and plays a central role in advancing critical and emerging technologies, whether it's AI, quantum, or advanced communications. Beyond that, we also have a long-standing reputation for cultivating trust in technology. We do that by participating in development of standards, advancing metrics, standards and metrics measurement science that makes technology more secure, more usable, more interoperable, more robust, more reliable, in other words, more trustworthy. And that's exactly what we're doing in AI space, as we have heard from previous speakers about the challenges in making AI systems trustworthy. The challenge of what constitutes trust, what is a trustworthy system, and how to advance trust and reliability of AI systems is something that has been of attention of policymakers, academia, and government agencies across the world in the past few years. The previous speaker talked about the executive order coming out of the US on October 30th and December 8th, finalizations of the EU AI Act. But there has been a lot more in the past, I guess, 5 or 6 years. And what you see on the screen is something that the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard mapped 36 sets of principles. And yet with all of those principles, still there is the question of exactly what constitutes trust and what do we mean by trustworthy, and what type of tools, guidance, standards are there to understand, map, measure, manage, and govern AI systems. And that's where AI RMF comes in. It's a voluntary framework to understand, to map, to identify the type of risks in AI systems, to measure those risks and their impacts, and provides guidance on how to manage the risk has been identified and measured, but also provides a governance framework for how to govern and all of the roles and responsibilities needed. This may sound a lot of text on the slide. The point of the slide is saying that AI RMF is really a highly detailed framework that gives concrete actionable recommendations. And more importantly, it accounts for a socio-technical context. We all know that AI systems are more than just data, compute, and algorithm. They are a complex interactions of data, compute, and algorithm. And any effort in advancing trustworthiness, doing risk management, or understanding their safety has to be from a socio-technical approach. So let's get into the AI RMF and talk about what AI RMF is. The first part of the AI RMF, AI Risk Management Framework, provides basically a foundation, a common ground, bringing everybody on the shared understanding on the same page about understanding AI, understanding AI risks, and what do we really mean by AI systems or risks. So the first part provides some key terminology, and I just have 2 of them on the screen for you to make 2 points. So one is, first of all, we started by leveraging all of the great work that has been done. We try to make sure that AI RMF is focused on the risks that are unique to AI systems. With AI systems are at the end of the day.
Excuse me, Mr. Bassi, we can see your slides because you don't change.
I have what? It seems that I have.
I only still see the further cover page.
On my screen, it is changed, so I don't know.
So we only see the cover of the slide. Maybe you can try again. You can share it again.
I'll try to. So you're saying only the cover slide? Yeah, that's not good. Stop sharing. What do you see now?
Yes, we can see it. Okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So, I'll quickly go through. That was the slide that I showed with many different principles that the Berkman Klein has been mapped, and we have leveraged all of them. This is the slide that I was talking about. AI RMF is a lot of concrete, actionable guidelines on what can be done. This other slide that I was talking about the terminology about the AI systems, I move on to talk about the definition of risk. And the point that I want to make here is that when you look at this definition of risk, which by the way has been leveraged from some of the definition in ISO documents, international standard organizations, but also other references in some of the government documents, it's a composite measure of an event's probability of occurring and the magnitude or degree of the consequence of that event. The consequence or impact can be positive, negative, or neutral. That makes a risk positive, negative, or neutral. And at the end, make risk management about maximizing the beneficial use of AI while minimizing and mitigating the negative consequences. And I think it's a really important concept that risk management ought to be about cost-benefit analysis and not just look at the negative part of the AI. And that's also a departure of our risk-based approach from some of the risk-based approaches in the world. Again, the first part of the AI-RMF, beyond the terminology, with the aim of bringing everybody on the same page, talk about challenges involved in risk management. Many of the topics covered in previous conversations and the previous presentation talked about how we don't know to completely and comprehensively evaluate AI systems. Because risks are hard to measure, we don't quite know whether the risks are involved. One of the questions was about that. How do we know what are the risks? Well, we don't know. We don't know the prevalence of risk. We don't know the community that are being impacted. Even when we have some of those informations, we don't have the right metrics or tools and methodologies. We don't have the science behind, for example, how to measure the interpretability of AI systems or bias. And measuring the safety and red teaming are all in their are very nascent research. The other thing is that risk needs to be prioritized. We cannot completely mitigate risks. Many of us in the technology, engineering, and science know that zero error doesn't exist. Zero risk doesn't exist either. So it's important to understand the interactions among the different risks, the different trustworthiness characteristics, and how to prioritize so we can allocate the right resources to them. Risk tolerances vary. How safe is safe, how private is private, how secure is secure, really depends on the context of use. If you're using, for example, face recognition to unlock our phone, or face recognition being used for by law enforcement for their applications, there are different risks and different levels of risks involved. So the balance of the security and convenience in all of these things becomes very important. While AI-RMF talks about what risks to consider, provides a taxonomy of risks, talks about how to measure risk, doesn't get into providing a threshold for accuracy, for security, for any of the trustworthiness characteristics, because these are highly contextual and depend on the use case. And then risk management must be integrated across the different AI actors involved, across the different applications in organizations. So it is not a standalone activity by itself and has to be plugged into the different activities. So with all those, level setting and kind of bringing the audience of the AI-RMF on the shared understanding of the different terminologies and the background and context setting, the core AI-RMF is about advancing the understanding of risk, measurement of risk, but also all of them within a culture of responsible AI practice and use. So as much as we need the technical solutions, we also need to build the culture and advance all of these things in a socio-technical manner. To bring a sort of structured process and approach to risk management, one of the things that we did in the development of the AI ORMF is to consult the community on coming up with a taxonomy of risk. We loosely talk about risk and trustworthiness as the two sides of the same coin. So what you see here is the socio-technical characteristics for trustworthy AI. We put the valid and reliable as a horizontal on the bottom because we want the systems to work as expected. You notice that we didn't put accuracy because validity is a more general and more comprehensive term as just accuracy. So we want the systems to be valid and reliable. And in addition to that, AI systems ought to be safe, secure, and resilient. We heard a lot from the previous speaker about the security and resilience and some of the research working on that space. AI systems ought to be explainable and interpretable. The term explainability, interpretability, and transparency in some documents and some literature are being used interchangeably. We have distinct definitions for each of them. While explainability in AI ORMF refers to basically understanding on how models work, what's the architectures, what are the model, what is the parameters, what are the weights, basically all the information that you need for, if I want to use the terms from the previous presentations, for debugging the systems and for hardening the systems. Interpretability is about the context and why, and providing more kind of reason or explanations of why the AI systems provide the output of recommendation the way they did. It becomes really important because at least in the US, there are already some laws on the book that, for example, if the loan application is denied, some explanation is needed. The issue of the privacy, so and making sure that the models are built in a way that are privacy enhanced. Large language model, even it was shown that deep learning models, they basically memorize their training data. I think it was a week ago that Google published a paper showing that one of the red teaming they did for ChatGPT was ask ChatGPT to repeat a word 100 times. Their results was verified by other researchers that if ChatGPT is asked to repeat the same word more than 100 times or so, ChatGPT starts spitting out its training data. And you can see that if the training data is sensitive data, financial data, patient data, or others, how it can be a privacy issue and concern. Plus that, I think one of the presenters said that these large language models are being trained on all of the information on the internet, and the information on the internet can be not quite correct, could be sensitive informations, or could be private informations. The issue of the bias and fairness has been discussed a lot. We have a paper in March 2022 that talked about bias in AI systems are more than just statistical and computational bias. So you would see that a lot of the literature, when they talk about bias, they reduce it to, for example, demographic disparity. That report talks about bias being more than just computational and statistical disparity. Those are important, but also systemic bias and human cognitive biases are two other important components of bias that needs to be understood and measured as part of the risk management of AI systems. And you would see that we put accountable and transparent as vertical next to the other one because they not only apply to the AI systems, but also the processes of how the systems are working. AI ORMF also talk about a responsible practice and activities across the whole AI lifecycle, and that AI risk management is a shared responsibility for all of the AI actors engaged and involved across the lifecycle. And to that end, it also provides a kind of a life cycle stage, again, leverage and built based on the work of the OECD. And it talks about and provides roles and responsibility for AI actors, particularly as it comes to the evaluations across the collect and process data, model building, verification and validations, deploy and use, operate and monitor. Two very important points about this slide. One, you see that people and planet are being put in the middle because the whole point of the risk management should be understanding the impacts on the people and planet. And so AI RMF is really put as the protection of the right as its center. So it's in a way not only a risk-based approach, but it's also a rights-preserving approach. The second thing is the importance of the continual monitoring. Risk management, particularly for AI systems, is not an activity that's done once. And when we talk about the culture of responsible practice, is involving and engaging all of the AI actors and also do it in a regular cadence, and that regular cadence can be different for different applications and use cases, depends on the impact and the consequence of the systems. So with all of those background setting, context setting, and setting the foundations, the core of the AI RMF lays out four functions, lays out guidelines categorized in four functions of map, measure, manage, and govern. I'll talk about each of them a little bit. I just want to also everybody know that we put the govern in the middle because we say that the govern is the heart of the risk management. Everything starts with the govern and with the govern. And govern function is all about fostering a risk culture. It talks about the roles and responsibilities, processes and procedures, all the embeddings that's needed for a efficient and successful risk management. The functions, the govern functions include, I think, 6 subcategories. You can see 3 of them here, and you see that it's all emphasizing on building a culture of inclusivity, bringing the different, a diverse set of thoughts and backgrounds and expertise, emphasis the robust engagement with the different AI actors, but also the community of impact community. The map function provides guidelines on understanding the context and understanding and identifying the risks. It informs whether to design, develop, deploy, or use, and if so, how. This is a nod. A lot of the instructions and guidelines in the map functions is a nod to the importance of the context. Diving a little bit down into the map function, you see some examples of the categories of the map, sample activities, and the questions that needs to be asked. It's really important to fully understand the use case, fully understands the environment and conditions, understands who is operating the systems, who is being impacted the systems, what are the risks involved, what are the capabilities, usage goals, benefits and risk of the systems, what are the methods and benchmark available to understand if the system works or not. The govern and map are the 2 functions that we usually suggest starting the risk management with. The measure functions use the informations provided by the map functions, use the embedding in the govern functions, and try to focus on setting up objective, repeatable, and scalable test evaluation and verification and validations of the term TEF that the National Security Commission on AI coined. It's really talking about and focusing about understanding and identifying metrics, methods, evaluations available for quantitatively, qualitatively, or mixed method measurement of the risks. It's really important to understand that many of the risks of AI systems, we don't have a methods and metrics to measure them. And even with what's available for their measurement cannot be summarized into one number. So that becomes a challenge in evaluations of the AI systems, that how to evaluate AI systems in their context of use, because a lot of evaluations take the systems out of their context of use, bring it into the laboratory, run test data through them, get the output of the systems and do some analysis. We call them model testing, system testing, and I think that's really important, but they are not going to be enough and efficient for evaluations of AI systems. AI systems ought to be measured in their native conditions, in their real world setting. If you remember, the previous speaker showed a nice house, everything is in routine as AI is developed, and then the real world condition is everything is stormy and doesn't work. So the evaluation of AI systems ought to be done in their real world setting. And because we cannot do only quantitative measurement, it's really important to also feedback about the efficacy of the measurement is gathered and assessed and shown. All these informations are being fed to the manage function that's trying to provide guidelines on how to mitigate, respond, or treat the risks identified. Some of the guidelines in the manage function focuses on prevention measures, how to prevent risks. Some of them on how to mitigate or provide response to them. Some of them on how to transfer the risks, and some of them on how to basically accept risks. But if risks are being accepted at the different stages, then it's important to also understand the residual risks, some of those residual risks as part of the overall risk management. The AI RMF is also accompanied by tools and documents and informations on helping the users, the audience, to actually operationalize it. AI RMF was released on January 2023. In March, we put out the Trustworthy and Responsible AI Resource Center. We call them AIRC. It includes AI RMF. It includes the AI RMF playbook, which I'll talk about it in a second. It provides a glossary of the terms, because it's still the case that we use the same term meaning different things. Even the word AI safety, even the word frontier models, foundational models are being understood differently by different users, by different actors all across the globe. We also provide crosswalks between AI RMF and different documents. My first slide showed that there has been a lot of good work and still continues to have work. ISO is putting standards out, and to bring more interoperability and harmonization across the documents, we provide crosswalks between AI RMF. At the time of the release, we put a crosswalk between AI RMF and OECD AI recommendations, between AI RMF and the White House Blueprint for AI Rights. We put a crosswalk between AI RMF and then the Commission draft of the EU AI Act, and the development of the crosswalks continues. But I want to also do a little bit deeper dive into the playbook. The playbook provides a lot more informative references for operationalizations of the AI RMF. So for each of the subcategories in AI RMF, it provides more information about suggested actions, standards, and other documents that can be used. It also provides transparency requirement. The way we define transparency in AI RMF is basically documentations of the decisions made, actions made. For example, if an assessment of the bias has been made, what was the test data, what were the metrics, how and why the decisions or the determination that the system was or was not biased was made. So the AI RMF playbook provides a lot more information for each of the categories and subcategories in AI RMF. And it's an interactive tool, it's searchable, and it can also be downloadable in many different formats. I talk about AI being all about context. At the same time, AI RMF, we come up with some attributes for AI-RMF at time of the design. And first, we want it to be flexible for organizations of the different resources and different size be able to use it, but also flexible so that it can keep up with the pace of technology, which, as we know, is very, very fast. We want it to be structured, and that's why we started by providing terminology and taxonomy, and basically keep the part one of the AI-RMF as sort of level setting and providing the common foundations. And in doing so, we also want to make sure that it is, because AI can be technology and use case agnostic, or be applied to many different technology and use cases, we wanted the AI-RMF be technology agnostic, so the risk management of AI application in, for example, financial sector has the same approach and structure as AI risk management for example, healthcare. So we envision development of profiles or verticals for the different use cases. So that can be, for example, the use of the face recognition in particular applications in a bigger organizations or a bigger industry. Or it can be for a particular sector, development of the profile for the whole financial sector, for example. But also temporal. So where organization stands today in regards to its AI risk management, where are the goals that they want to go, so it can provide a path to risk management. Some of these profiles are being under development. We are very pleased with the adoption of the AI-RMF. There are some local government using it. There are industries that are thinking, use cases that are thinking about development of the AI-RMF profile. Example of that is there is a profile for housing has been developed, one for procurement is being developed, and we invest in working with the community, have been working on a cross-sectoral profile of AI-RMF for generative AI. In closing, I just want to also make a note that AI-RMF was developed through an extensive process of multi-stakeholder consultations. What you see on the slide is the outreach engagements that we had with the community. Altogether, we heard from more than 240 distinct organizations, encompassing from technology developers. These are technical experts with experiences in building models, computer scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, but also the community that study the impact of the technology, psychologists, cognitive scientists, lawyers, philosophers. So we heard from civil society, we heard from standard development organizations, we received input from deployers as well as developers, but also even the foreign governments. All of the inputs that we received, the recording of the workshops that we had are posted on our website. And as I said, AI-RMF was released on January 26th. We put a revision cycle of every 3 to 5 years for AI-RMF. We understand that it's important for this to be revised and be kept by the advances in the community. But the AI-RMF, the playbook, we put a revision cycle of every 6 months, so we can update it with all of the research and all of the work that's happening, advances in the field that's happening. We also put a roadmap of the future work at the time of the release of the AI-RMF, and we have been working on many of them concurrently. And the executive order that Dr. Chen mentioned, released on October 30th, is basically double downing on some of these activities. We put the alignment with international standards and production of the crossworks as the first item on the on our roadmap. It's important to bring interoperability and harmony across all of the different works that's happening across the globe. Expanding test evaluation, verification, and validations, and I think that was a lot of the message on the previous presentations too. So it's important that the field is advancing and more powerful models and more powerful architectures are being advanced. But we need, before we put them into the practice, we need to have the assurances that the system works and the system is trustworthy. So it's important to understand what to measure and how to measure. ARRMF sets out the stage, gives the guidance on what to measure, and to the extent possible on what to measure. But the field of AI evaluations, AI assurance is very nascent. Many of the evaluations are very narrow, only focusing on the system or model evaluations. We ought to broadening them all to a socio-technical evaluations. And we don't have any knowledge of is this methods and metrics proposed or generalizable across the fields. And more importantly, the number of the open benchmarks and evaluations are very, very limited. The executive order asks NIST to provide guidelines for red teaming, guidelines for synthetic content authentications, launch evaluations, and create test environment. And that very much aligns with the work that we have been doing. Development of the profile, this is where we the rubber hits the road, where the operationalizations of ARRMF happens, when we add the context into the structured, flexible approach of the ARRMF. Some of these profiles, as I said, are in development and we will build more. In interest of time, I don't talk about the rest, but I will say that you would see that there is a lot of research topics here. It's important to understand the trade-off among the different trustworthiness characteristics. The research shows us that we cannot optimize all of them at the same time. How security and bias interact with each other, interpretability and security, all of those are very important. But also the importance of the human factor and human AI interactions. I close by giving you some links to where you can learn more about our work. This was basically the work that we have done on ARRMF. In the next few months, we are going to put out the output of the Generative AI Public Working Group, where about 2,500 volunteers help us develop guidelines on pre-deployment verifications of generative AI models, digital content provenance of generative AI, incident disclosure, and governance of the AI models, generative AI models. And I look forward to engaging with all of you and continuing these conversations as we all work on better manage the risk of AI systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brasi. And due to unlimited time, so here's one question. 我想请问一下 ，AI 能优化组织和创新商品，那如何能够同时平衡创新的发展，又能够合乎法规呢？
I would answer that. Thank you very much for the question. I would answer that the regulations and innovation, they do not need to be in opposition of each other. We can have regulations that are pro-innovations. And when you look at the executive order and you look at the emphasis on, for example, the work that we do on voluntary frameworks, these are all allows for the flexibility are needed. So I am a computer scientist. I believe in innovations, and I think that it's really important to build a safe space for innovation to happen in a responsible and safe space. So what we're trying to do is put up the guardrails to understand what type of what those guardrails should look like, whether the safe, how to develop a safe space for the innovators to innovate and technology to propel and foster.
Okay, thank you. Thanks to Ms. Brasi. 我们再次非常感谢呢 Brasi 为我们带来的精彩分享，谢谢。那由于今天时间的关系呢，所以我们将会不会中场休息，我们直接进入到今天的交流论坛。 好，那在刚刚呢，我们精彩的2场非常精彩的一个专题演讲当中，我们也讲述了来自于美国对于 AI 的风险管理以及安全稳定性、安全性等等 面向来发表一个观点。在接下来的座谈当中，我们将以迈向可信任 AI 为题，进行更深入的探讨。那首先，让我们有请稍早为我们致辞的数位发展部唐凤部长，以及还有我们交流论坛主持人国立台湾大学资讯工程学系徐友珍教授一同上台欢迎。那我们上午的各场的专题演讲，2位海外的连线讲者也一同来参与本场的交流论坛，包括美国 IBM Thomas J. Watson 研究中心陈品玉首席研究员，以及呢 MIT 新兴资讯科技研究室 Elkan Chabasi 研发副总监。那接下来我们就把时间交给主持人徐永珍教授，欢迎。
已经开了。好，那个我想首先在这里非常谢谢今天大家的参与。那我们刚刚也已经听了几位这个很精彩的这个 summary， 好，就是有国内跟国外全世界的一些现况。那所以我想我在这里，我依序可能请问几位讲者几个问题。好，首先就是请问部长。在这个国际整个大家对推动可信任 AI 的 effort 下面 ，EU 有 AI Act， 然后美国有这个 Executive Order， 还有刚刚讲到这个 RISC， 这个 RMF 的这些 framework。那我想请问一下，就说在国内，我了解您在数位部这边是以 AI 评测来开始进行这个 AI 的一些这个等于推动可信任 AI 的一个步骤。那我想请问一下，您认为在这些方面，在国内有一些，当然我们希望跟国际接轨之外，有没有一些什么在国内特别需要注意的地方？然后还有就是说，除了 AI 评测之外，我们还有一些什么样其他有没有一些法规或什么样的一些 effort？会是在哪些单位来进行？那还有就是说，在评测这边可能会包含什么样的项目跟这个产品的范围？好，
这一题我可以用资安院董事长的身份先回答一下资安的部分，然后再回到数位部的身份，特别是对公民参与以及开放资料开放原始码等等做2部分的回答。因为刚才讲者也都有提到 assurance 这个字assurance 这个字在 AI 系统这边是刚刚提到的，就是包含可解释透明等等的意思。但是到资安这边，它是组织的这个包含资讯的完整性、它的机密性、它的可用性，不要因为导入这个系统就被破坏掉了。所以同样叫 assurance， 其实是2个领域用的不太一样。那在资安院里面，我们是把这2个重叠的地方，就是它既要能够去照顾到这个 AI 系统本身，刚刚讲到的不知为不知透明可解释等等，但是另外一部分，特别在高度监管的事业里面，好比像说金融业里面本来就有很多 security policy， 那这些呢应用 AI 怎么样强化，而不是又进一步弱化这些 security policy， 这个是很重要。所以关于这些行业，像金管会其实就抢先这个发布了金融业运用 AI 的核心原则，那现在也已经有一个金融业运用 AI 指引等等，就是要把这2边都保守住那这个部分，我想我们会进一步的去关注，不只是刚刚大家有提到的机密性等等，也包含资讯的完整性 （information integrity） 因为同样的一个资讯，经过 AI 换句话说之后，它的说服力可能就变高了，但是呢，当初的那个资讯的脉络可能就被破坏掉了。那这部分事实上也已经造成一些社会上的一些困扰，所以这一部分我想资安院里面也有讯息防护的部分，这部分我们明年会特别加强去把就是生成式 AI 对于资讯完整性的威胁以及怎么因应也加到我们 evaluation 的部分里面，这个就是 evaluation on societal impact。那到数位部这边来的话，我们也很希望说， 到底要有哪些评测项目，哪些对大家是重要的，不是只是专家的多方利害关系人说了算，而是可以直接去问大家。事实上，我们透过跟 CIP 这个组织联合，我们在台湾，甚至在美国，跟有统计代表性的1000人，都已经问了大家对这些 AI 系统的忧虑是什么，跟专家未必是相同的哦。像在美国，他们很在意的就是没有办法完全解释它运作原理的东西。我们如果对它上瘾了怎么办？如果拔不掉怎么办？对，那个无法自拔，这个就是之前他们在 social media 这件事情上已经有过一些教训，所以现在这个他们变成最在意的题目。那在台湾，我们也很高兴，就是这个也是一种 red teaming， 就是大家的疑虑，我们把它转化成红队的攻击性的问题，然后拿来给国科会的台德的这个团队，然后台德团队也跟我们说太抽象了，不知道这些大家收集出来意见这么抽象，我们要怎么 operationalize？ 那我们就再进一步扩大征询之后，再把它进行对齐之后再整合成一些非常具体的这些操作项目。那这样子的话，我想这种 collaborative red teaming 就是不是做出来之后，我们在下游再去做验测，而是在它还在甚至微调的过程里面，我们就不断的来一起 red team。那这一点也是我们觉得需要整个社会一起来做的，也就是在这个游戏实际上市之前，都会有封闭式测试、公众测试嘛等等这些部分。我想未来我们会鼓励更多的这种公众测试，让大家一起在开发的过程里就可以一起来对齐，包含让 AI 模型彼此互相辩论，我们来看它的辩论的那个品质啊等等，这些现在都有很多种半自动或全自动可以延展的对齐的做法，能够纳入大家的意见。
好，谢谢部长。So I'm going to follow up with one question for each of the other speakers. So first of all, Dr. Chen, thank you for sharing your insights on the global landscape on trustworthy AI. And given your unique position in both the kind of bridging industry and academic, and also in international community. So we would like to know, in your experience in collaborating with Taiwanese researchers, what do you see will be the more interesting areas where Taiwanese researchers can participate more actively and be able to contribute to trustworthy AI?
Yeah, thank you, Professor Xu. I think this is a great question, and you will be surprised at how many time I actually spend on thinking about those questions, given my deep connection to Taiwanese researchers. So I would say there are many ways I will answer this question. Right? So first of all, strategically, right? I think we should be, as the Minister Council, we should be collaborating by joining the open source community to collaboratively develop this technology together, right, with the researchers around the globe, right? For example, so there are basically two big camps, right, in today's AI technology right now. There's very closed system, right, like ChatGPT, like Google Bard or Gemini, right, where they don't tell the details about their model. On the other hand, in the other spectrum, there are also a lot of open source efforts that we have been seeing, right? For example, Meta is taking the lead, right? And also some French companies, Mistral and so on, they are releasing state-of-the-art foundation models that are capable, right, perhaps similar performance to ChatGPT, and they open source everything and invite collaborators from the globe to join, right? And that includes red teaming efforts, right, most of the time. So I think strategically, because right now the focus of this cutting-edge AI technology is still focusing on scalability, which means we still don't see a sign of saturation yet. That means, as long as you have more data, or as long as you can have more GPUs, right, larger models, the performance, right, just seems to be continue to increase. Right? We don't see any sign of saturation yet. So the industry and also it's actually very focused on scalability right now. And although I think Taiwan has a lot of sufficient resources, I don't think we should be a competitor, right? Because to make a leader or make Taiwan ahead of the other competitors, if you want to build your own language model from scratch, that basically means we need to have a lot of resources, a lot like human resources, computing resources, a lot of investments, right, to collect this data, right, just to be in the game, right. So I don't think because of the focus on scalability, right? I don't think Taiwan's research focus should be training a foundation model of our own, right? Rather, we should really piggyback on what's already out there, right? And those, leverage those foundation models. And foundation models, eventually, it will evolve into like a multimodal, multilingual scenario, right? For example, if you look at the demo released by Google a few days ago, the Gemini, it's basically not even focusing on the language understanding part, because that's pretty much being done by ChatGPT. Instead, Gemini actually contrasts itself with today's language model in terms of this multimodal ability, right? Like understanding videos, right? And can do predictions and can speech processing and things like that, right? So multimodal is certainly the trending part in most of the language model society right now. But I think eventually, right, to make these tools and technology really accessible to the world, multilingual, right, is pretty essential, right? You certainly don't want ChatGPT can only understand English but not other languages. And I think that is actually where Taiwan's expertise can come in, right? From the language model perspective, right? If you know, like for a fact that the pre-training data of this foundation model, I think most of them, more than 80% of them actually English, right? In addition to some like code programming languages. Only a few data are actually from Chinese, right? So there is certainly a very large need, right, to take a language model pre-trained primarily on English data and see how you can incorporate like Chinese or other languages right, in Asia, right, to make it more accessible and also more usable, right, for different countries in Asia, right? And also those models, right, when we do alignment with those models, we need to ensure those models are aligned with human social well-being, right, aligned with the values that we want to preserve, right? So I think the agility and flexibility, right, of Taiwan's research expertise can really be very useful to play as a leader, right? Just to enable these multilingual efforts in terms of alignment, right, but not in terms of pre-training a language model, right? And we can already leverage all those open source libraries and also language models online. And on the technology side, right, if you look upstream, right, so those foundation models are not possible without the support of the hardware and infrastructure, right? So Taiwan is very good in terms of its systems on chip and also manufacturing semiconductors and things like that. Right? So the next thing we can all think about is how can we build the next generation materials or systems on circuits that are more language model friendly, that can run more efficiently, right? Or can compact or distill the model, right? So that we can deploy a ChatGPT on a cell phone. Right? I think that's something, given a sufficient, given a budget, like a budget of a watt, or how can you maximize the density or maximize the efficiency of the technology? That's what Taiwan is very good at in terms of optimization. And also, we can play a very unique role in the supply chain of this AI technology, because this AI technology would not be possible without the dimensions of hardware in terms of acceleration, in terms of training and things like that. So yeah, I think the next generation focus should be on how can you deploy those models efficiently and reliably, right, on a chip, right? And also how can we develop new materials or new circuits, right, new chips, right, that enable acceleration or in training and deployment of these language models. And also, how can we join the global efforts of alignment to make sure Taiwan side with the world's value, and also help, right, the language model, right, to be deployed quickly, right, to different languages.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Chen. So in fact, Taiwan is especially good in efficient deployment of many systems. So in fact, the Tide model is running on a single PC nowadays. So hopefully we will be able to really meet your expectation. And my next question is for Associate Director Tabashi. Well, thank you for sharing a lot of the comprehensive plan from NIST and in terms of the risk management framework. And we really appreciate that the US is taking the lead in defining such a comprehensive framework. And releasing a roadmap as early as January. So my question to you is that given that the technology has changed so rapidly, has there been any unexpected, in terms of following the roadmap? Is there any deviation from the original plan? And also, I understand that the U.S. Of course, take a strong stance in supporting trustworthy AI, but there are certain areas U.S. may not be totally aligned with the EU position. Do you think what would be the major things that you need to work out so that we can reach a global consensus? Thank you.
Thank you for those questions. Your first question that I rephrase it so I can address that AI risk management framework came out in January. ChatGPT 4 came out in February. So is AR/RMF still applicable to ChatGPT 4? To that, I will say the short answer is yes, and the longer answer is that ChatGPT 3 had came out in November, and a lot of the other generative AI large language models had came out a year before. So one of the reasons that we updated the definition in AI system from the OECD document to what you saw on the screen was to ensure that the definition of AI system would be applicable to what we know at that time and called them large language models. And as you I'm pretty sure you know, EU Parliament asked OECD to work on the updating their definition of AI systems for the same reason, so that it's applicable to generative AI systems. And what OECD came up with is very close to, with some wordsmithing, is very close to what we have in AR. So that was on AI definition, but AI system definition. One of the first things we did right after the ChatGPT came out is start having a series of conversations with experts in the community, specifically asking the question that you asked. Is the material in AR/RMF, the way the trustworthiness is defined, the approach for risk management applicable to generative AI? So one of the conversations that we had, for example, was with Kush at IBM, and by the way, the recording of those conversations is also on our website. And what we heard from the experts, let me just go and say, I mentioned Kush's name, and I don't want to just single out Kush, but we also had experts from, for example, Anthropic and the entities that are building these models. And what we heard is the AR/RMF is applicable, but let's, or I should say, let's develop a cross-sectoral profile of AI/RMF for generative AI, which, by the way, we had also envisioned it as one of the profiles if you look at the case of AI/RMF. To that end, we launched a generative AI public working group where we basically ask anybody who wants to come and help development of the profile, and we narrowed instead of working on developing the full profile, we narrowed down on 4 sets of guidelines. Pre-deployment verifications, of course, red teaming is the most fashionable, most popular methods, but we're hoping that there will be other methods too, because while red teaming is the best we can do now, all of us also know about its limitations. Another set of guidelines, again, on the synthetic content provenance, synthetic content authentications, or provenance of the content, because large language models scrap the web, and if the web get filled with synthetic data and maybe wrong data, then we are not in a good position. Another set of guidelines on incident disclosure, because we're learning from the fields such as cybersecurity, we know how important it is to share the vulnerabilities, the errors, the incidents, to have a better, more informed risk management process. And because we think that governance is very important, we also pick the governance functions. Those guidelines, again, we were very honored and humbled with the responses that we got. 2,500 volunteers signed up. We set up Slack channels. We worked with the community. The Slack channels are going to be closed end of this coming week on December 15th because we basically got enough information drafting the guidelines, and all of them will be the sort of base draft for a cross-sectoral profile of AI RMF that the EO has asked. So that was the long answer to your first question. Having said that, I think this type of things, that checking with the community, making sure of the applicability of the guidance that we put out based on the advances in the technology is something that we are very cognizant of and very determined to. And you saw that the stuff on the roadmap are very high level in terms of advanced tech, and I think that's what has become the major effort and major challenge that we're going to answer. Quickly, I'm responding to your next point. I think there is differences in how each side of the pond define its risk-based approach. In AR RMF, there is a lot of emphasis on the context, on the fact that the risk management, risk assessment should be proportional to the impact, the consequence of and the impacts that the AI systems can have on the people and planet. We don't believe in, and also the other thing about RMF is that they are outcome focused. So we don't believe in prescriptive methods. We think that they can be very limited and be very soon outdated by the pace of the technology. And we also don't think that we can have a priority decisions of this applications or this technology is high risk or low risk. So again, the example of the face recognition, the risk really depends on the context of use, and that's different. That's another differentiation there. Having said all of these things, we have been working with our EU colleagues as part of the Trade and Technology Council dialogue. We have been working on advancing terminology, making sure that we are all on the same page when we are using the word risk, for example, because our definition is slightly different. Another working group is working on advancing standards, because at the end, I think having international standards on how to define and measure the trustworthiness can bring more alignment between approaches.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I think it is quite obvious that all the panelists do agree that we share certain common values, and it is important for us to work toward a global standard. And we are very happy to see Taiwan is definitely part of the team. So in the interest of time, I would like to ask each panelist to give a very short answer, kind of a one-sentence answer, pointing out what do you think is the biggest challenge going forward, and maybe one-sentence advice for everybody in the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and since you're asking in English, I'm answering in English. I think there's nothing impacting the people without people's involvement that we can sustain for long. That is to say, in liberal democracies, I think people have a very strong ethics of nothing about us without us. And so my one-sentence recommendation looking forward to next year is just to democratize alignment and evaluation, making sure everyone, not just me who run Taida right at 20 tokens per second on my laptop and fine-tuning on my emails and so on, but everybody understand how and why of doing so. And the call to action, therefore, is to encourage all of you to learn about alignment and evaluation. Unlike other technologies where you need a lot of very expensive equipment for constitutional AI, you just need a text editor. So look up on that, and perhaps we can join each other in the next alignment assemblies.
Thank you. Dr. Chen?
Yeah, my one sentence will be, definitely you should use those technology, right? But also, use them with a grain of salt, right? So, what we have seen is that those models are great, right? But certainly don't trust them too much, especially don't think those models or agents are something smarter than you, right? And you trust them without any reservation, right? For example, I believe Mr. Tom didn't just ask ChatGPT to write emails and send them without checking what is being wrote, right? In fact, a lot of people are actually using that, right, as a surrogate. Like, okay, I just basically defer all my tasks to ChatGPT and that accomplish all my tasks that I'm supposed to do. That is a very dangerous word because there is no trust in the process and there is no inspection about what ChatGPT is doing. Most of the time, you are actually getting things, doing things in the wrong way, right? So definitely use those technology with a grain of salt.
Thank you. And Associate Director Tabasi.
So coming and belonging to a measurement science agency, I would say measurement and evaluations where we heard about this. We don't know how to evaluate AI systems from a socio-technical approach. And I want to just emphasize that again, the importance of paying attention that people and individuals are part of the AI systems, and our evaluation should consider all of them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I hope everybody have learned a lot about Trustworthy AI, and this is very good to see that Taiwan is really joining the global community on working to align the values in democracy and helpfulness and harmless. Okay, and so with that, I do hope that everybody got some interesting insights home, and thank you for coming to the panel today. Yeah. Okay, let's have applause for all the panelists. Okay, yeah.
Next to the moderator and all the panelists, and for this wonderful moment, I think we should take a group photo. So right now, please put it up and move your step here. We will take a group photo through the live video projection. 我们借由今天这难得的机会，邀请我们唐凤部长以及我们徐教授，我们一同来透过投影幕的画面，与我们海外的讲者共同留念。好，那我们现在请看我们前方摄影师镜头。Now please look at the front camera and give us a big smile. 再次非常感谢呢，我们主持人以及玉涵刚才为我们带来的精彩的分享，从国外的经验及观点到国内政策的推动，那相信我们各位现场以及线上所有的听众们都收获良多。好，再让我们媒体捕捉一下画面。再次非常感谢，好，谢谢，再次非常感谢。Thank you once again to the moderator and the panelists. 再次非常感谢，谢谢。好的，那我们各位现场以及线上所有与会嘉宾，接下来是我们90分钟的中午休息时间。那我们下午场的研讨会预计将会在下午1点30分开始，也请各位贵宾准时回座。也提醒我们线上收看的贵宾，请记得在下午1点20分切换至下午场的直播连接，谢谢。那同时，现在我们也请我们现场所有的与会嘉宾，我们在会场外的帮各位准备好有便当、有咖啡、茶水，供各位前往享用。那请各位呢凭我们入场报到时拿到了黄色